Imagine wandering through a forest when you stumble upon an extraordinary scene, a small, helpless deer caught in a cruel trap, struggling to break free, but just as hope begins to fade, an unlikely hero emerges, a curious raccoon, instinctively working to help the trapped animal. What happens next is nothing short of amazing. Can the raccoon's determination save the deer? Or will the forest's silent observer need help from something bigger? What unfolds is a tale of unexpected heroism, wild instincts, and the surprising bond between creatures from different worlds. Want to know how it all turns out? Keep watching. This is a rescue like no other. In nature, it's not common to witness one species attempting to help another, especially when they aren't from the same family. But in the case of the deer and the raccoon, an unexpected bond of empathy and heroism was formed. The story begins with a young deer caught in a cruel trap, struggling to escape. The sharp metal teeth of the trap clamped down on its leg, causing pain and panic. As it thrashed about, trying desperately to break free, the forest around it remained eerily silent. But it wasn't entirely alone. The raccoon, who had been foraging nearby, spotted the distressed animal from a distance. Rather than continuing with its search for food or retreating in fear, the raccoon seemed to recognize that the deer was in trouble. Its instinct to help did not come from the typical patterns of animal behavior that we associate with competition or survival. Instead, the raccoon approached cautiously, its eyes filled with curiosity and perhaps a bit of concern. The raccoon began gnawing at the ropes of the trap, working with surprising determination. While it couldn't free the deer completely, the raccoon's actions made it clear that it understood something was wrong. In the animal kingdom, this kind of altruistic behavior is rare. Most animals act primarily in their own self-interest, driven by instincts of survival and protection of their kin. However, this raccoon didn't seem to hesitate or show fear, stepping outside the boundaries of its typical behavior. This moment of unexpected heroism demonstrated that animals are capable of more than just instinctual survival. It's as if the raccoon understood that the deer was vulnerable and needed help, even though they weren't kin or even from the same species. It didn't matter that they were different. The raccoon was willing to act and make a difference. While it was ultimately humans who were able to finish what the raccoon had started by alerting nearby hikers to the situation, the raccoon's behavior illustrated an important lesson. The idea of heroism can transcend species boundaries. Sometimes the smallest, most unlikely creatures can make a huge impact, and their actions can spark hope and inspire others to take action. The raccoon's empathy for the trapped deer reminds us that acts of kindness can emerge from the most unexpected places, even in the wild, where survival is typically the only focus. While the raccoon's actions were a significant part of the story, it was ultimately human intervention that saved the young deer from its perilous situation. This part of the story highlights a central theme: the critical role humans play as stewards of wildlife and their ability to intervene when nature's delicate balance is disturbed. The raccoon's valiant attempt to free the trapped deer was not enough on its own. Despite its best efforts, the complex nature of the trap, along with the deer's panicked state, meant that the situation required more than just the raccoon's instinctual help. It needed the trained hands and decision-making of humans who could provide the precise care and rescue needed. When the hikers discovered the scene, their immediate response was not only to assess the deer's condition, but also to understand the urgency of the situation. The process of freeing an animal from a trap requires careful handling to avoid causing further injury or distress. The hikers, who were familiar with the forest and its wildlife, were able to stay calm and think clearly. They carefully approached the deer, speaking softly to reassure it and prevent it from struggling further, which could have exacerbated its injuries. The involvement of experienced wildlife rescue workers soon followed. These professionals were equipped with the right tools and techniques to safely release the deer from the trap. The rescuers didn't just remove the metal jaws from the animal's leg, they also ensured that the deer was not in shock, took steps to check for any hidden injuries, and provided necessary first aid. The fact that humans could intervene in such a delicate and life-threatening moment is a reminder of the invaluable role we play in the lives of wild animals, especially those that have no ability to protect themselves from human-made dangers like traps. But it wasn't just the immediate physical intervention that made a difference. It was also the recognition that sometimes animals need human help to navigate the threats that arise from their changing environments. As human expansion pushes deeper into wild habitats, the impact of our presence on animal ecosystems grows. More often than not, wildlife encounters human structures, pollution, or other hazards that animals simply aren't equipped to deal with. This is where human intervention becomes even more critical. By rescuing the deer, the hikers didn't just help a single animal. They also demonstrated how human presence can serve as a lifeline in moments of crisis. It showed that with proper training, awareness, and compassion, humans can contribute positively to the preservation of wildlife. This intervention also sent a larger message, that humans have the power and responsibility to protect other species, especially when they are at the mercy of forces beyond their control. In the case of the deer, the rescue didn't end with freeing it from the trap. Once freed, the animal was given a chance to recover and was later released back into the wild. This careful, thoughtful approach ensured that the deer had the best possible chance for survival, illustrating that when humans act as responsible caretakers, they can make a significant and lasting difference in the lives of animals in distress. Ultimately, human intervention in this story was not just about rescuing a single animal. It was a symbol of how humans can partner with nature to protect and preserve the delicate balance of life in the wild. Through empathy, awareness, and swift action, we can be the bridge between animals' vulnerability and their right to live freely in their natural habitat. In the wild, communication is crucial for survival, but it isn't always as straightforward as we might expect. Many animals rely on instinctive calls, body language, and even the environment around them to communicate distress or alert others to danger. The story of the deer and the raccoon highlights the subtle yet powerful ways animals interact, not only with each other but with humans as well. The raccoon's actions, for example, were more than just a random attempt to chew at the trap. They were a form of communication, an attempt to signal to the world that something was wrong. Even though the raccoon couldn't speak or use language in the way humans do, its behavior was loud and clear. There was a trapped and vulnerable creature in need of help. Its persistence in trying to free the deer was a kind of nonverbal message, expressing that this wasn't a normal situation but one that required immediate attention. This animal behavior mirrors how, in the wild, many creatures use actions to communicate distress. From the alarm calls of birds warning their flock of a predator, to the desperate cries of a young animal seeking its mother, the animal kingdom is full of signals that transcend the limits of vocalization. The raccoon, through its unusual act of compassion, acted as a messenger between the distressed deer and the human rescuers who would ultimately intervene. The raccoon's intervention also underscored the idea that animals have a way of recognizing and responding to distress signals from other species, and sometimes they can alert humans to the problem. Without the raccoon's initial attempt to aid the deer, the hikers might not have found the trapped animal as soon as they did. The raccoon, in essence, became a bridge between the wild animal's distress and the human help that was needed. This story also highlights how humans, in turn, have learned to interpret animal behavior as a way to understand when something is wrong in nature. The raccoon's actions sparked awareness in the humans nearby, proving that animals' distress calls, even when unintentional, can serve as vital signals that demand our attention. In the end, the raccoon's role was a reminder of the deep, often unspoken communication happening in nature. It's a testament to the idea that animals may not only communicate with one another but can also inadvertently or purposefully send out signals that humans can recognize and respond to. The power of communication is not just about words or sounds. It's about recognizing the cues in the natural world and responding to them when they arrive. Communication is essential in the animal kingdom, but it doesn't always come in the form we expect. In the case of the raccoon and the trapped deer, communication was not limited to vocalizations or traditional signals. It was an intricate nonverbal language that allowed one species to convey a sense of urgency to another. The raccoon's actions of gnawing at the ropes and trying to free the deer were clear signals that something was wrong. Even though raccoons are not typically associated with saving other animals, this particular raccoon seemed to recognize the deer's distress and acted instinctively to help. In many ways, the raccoon acted as a messenger, alerting humans to the animal's perilous situation. Its behavior didn't just serve as a cry for help, it was an intricate form of communication. Just as birds might send out alarm calls when a predator is near, or wolves might howl to signal their location, the raccoon's actions made the presence of a trapped, suffering animal known to those who could provide real assistance. This is where human interpretation came into play. The raccoon, although unable to speak or directly call for human help, successfully communicated the deer's distress through its behavior. Humans, attuned to animal signals, saw the raccoon's actions as an indication that something was wrong. The hikers who stumbled upon the scene might have continued on their path if they hadn't noticed the raccoon's determined efforts. The raccoon, therefore, played a crucial role in triggering human intervention. The story also shows how animals can be more observant and aware than we often give them credit for. The raccoon's decision to take action was driven by an innate understanding of vulnerability. Animals are keenly aware of their environments and the behaviors of those around them, and sometimes these creatures communicate a problem in the only way they know how. Whether it's an animal's behavior that signals danger or their cries that attract human attention, nature's communication network is much more sophisticated than we may realize. Ultimately, the raccoon's silent message created a powerful chain of events that allowed the deer to be rescued. This story reminds us that animals are constantly interacting with their surroundings and each other, and while we may not always understand their language, we can learn to recognize their signals, especially when they need our help.